Welcome to Leadership Speaking Radio, the podcast for leaders and change makers who want to learn how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection to their peers, teams, and customers in order to build better relationships, better their bottom lines, and become better leaders. My name is Dr. Laura Penn. I'm the founder of the Leadership Speaking School, and I'm your host. Visit the website, theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to find out more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you speak. Now, let's get straight into our topic. Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode in Season 5. Woo woo! I hope that you have been enjoying what you are listening to and the content that I've been creating for you in this format. This is all about being real, related to the incredible theme of leadership communication. Oh, there's so much more work to do. And in this episode, we are going to go in and talk about another layer related to the craft of leadership communication, which is what I'm calling preparation for craftwork. Yes, this is episode number 54 in the scheme of things. And are you ready to think about this craft some more? Are you ready to receive tools and techniques which are craft-based elements that can support you to speak with gravitas to your peers, teams, and customers? I hope so, because I am ready to deliver, to download. And the key word in this episode is preparation. And if you've been listening to Leadership Speaking Radio for the past couple of years, I know I have talked about preparation. And some of this will be repeated information for you in this episode, but you can never hear enough about this topic. Honestly, you can't hear too much about preparation, because it's the one thing that leaders and teams and change makers don't do enough of, right? It's the one ingredient that most people are too busy to do enough of or to do it right. So I want to come back to this root and really download the best practices of how you can be preparing for the delivery performance of your content. So here we go. You've heard me say this before too, which I used to quote as Benjamin Franklin, but I recently found out it isn't his. So I'll just say, I don't know, there's an anonymous person who said this. I love these words. It is, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. So whoever said that, anonymous, well said. If you fail to prepare for your speaking engagements, you prepare to fail. What does this look like? It looks like you're not ready. It looks like you coming into the speaking position and your nerves have gotten the best of you, right? Your nerves and your nervousness are managing you. You are not managing them. And that's the wrong relationship, by the way, for that control of your nerves. And you show up there, your mouth is dry, your heart feels like it's beating out of your body. You are visibly nervous. Your voice is contracted because tension is the enemy of your voice. And every muscle in your body is now tight because of your nerves. Look, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to go any deeper into this visualization of what it looks like not to be prepared, except to say that when you start speaking, the words don't make any sense. Maybe you've made up some new content. Unplanned words have come out, or you've lost your voice. Whatever's happened, you have not prepared, so you prepare to fail. And in what I'm teaching you related to the craft of leadership communication, this stage or this development of you not being prepared is edited out. It's not part of the craft to show up on stage looking like that. because there are things that have been done that are related to the performing art of leadership communication that avoid you being that person on that stage in that state. So if you haven't listened, by the way, to the last episode number 53, please go back and listen. And that's about the fact that leadership communication is a performing art, and I go all into what that means. And this episode number 54, is now kind of pulling on that string and bringing out more details and information about this topic. So as a performance art, again, if you are an actor and you're cramming the night before and you have a performance to do in front of a high stakes audience, you're not going to succeed in that performance of your acting. If you're a dancer, same thing. If you're a musician, a singer, same thing. No performing artist worth their salt would prepare like that. And now that you know that leadership communication is a performing art, you also should not be allowing yourself to prepare like an amateur or to prepare with the mindset that this isn't a performing art. It is. So what do you have to do differently? Well, that's where we're going in deep this episode. And this isn't, this is not a favorite topic of a lot of people because, as I said in the last episode, this is the reality check that, oh man, there aren't any shortcuts, right? There's no quick fix solution. You have to go through all the stops. You can't pass go. You have to go through it all. And this is certainly where this is really the difference between a speaker who has prepared like an amateur or a speaker who has prepared like a pro. And this is the pro league that we're in. That's why you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure, because you want to elevate and heighten how you communicate with those around you. And this is what it takes. So in the best case scenario, and my favorite kind of preparation, the minimum amount of time between knowing that you're going to be delivering a talk and actually delivering that talk is 3 months. It's the magic number. 3 months. It's a delicious amount of time to work both in the content creation bucket and in the delivery performance bucket. Yes, you can do it all. You can create a beautiful piece of work and you can rehearse it enough to have it polished and ready and performed. Ta-da. So this is the best case scenario. And when people, sometimes this happens, I feel sorry for these people because I have to reject them and decline their invitation to work together. But, sometimes I'll get a call or an email on a Friday afternoon, somebody who's in a hot rush about, I'm going to be delivering a talk on Monday and I need your input, Dr. Penn. Can we have a call? And I say, no, I can't support you to succeed over the weekend. We need a lot more time together. And then I wish them well and wish them on their way. And because the people that I can help, the people who do contact me and say, well, hey, I'm doing a high stakes TED-like talk in 3 months. Can you support me? Well, most likely I can. Although I don't do that much one-to-one coaching anymore. But, right? The point is that it's about that time, that cushion of time to make sure that you have time for each of those phases. When I used to do a lot more one-to-one coaching, and actually I used to work for big TEDx events and be the head coach. Oh yeah, 3 months was the minimum. And in one case we had 8 months, which was even more delicious. But the more time, the better is kind of the big takeaway here. And by the way, if you're wondering, well, if I don't do one-to-one coaching, what do? I do masterclasses around the world. I travel to support teams, or they come here to Switzerland. And I do my Leadership Speaking Core 3-day program at the HQ of the Leadership Speaking School in Switzerland, where 6 leaders have applied and come and work with me. And extremely intense and wonderful, if I may add, for 3 days. And then I do keynote speaking. So these are the things that I do. Anyway, back to the preparation. So this is what good looks like. Actually, this is what great looks like, a 3-month window. And I want to take you into a case study example and kind of show you what this looks like. Besides saying what it is, what does it actually look like in this 3-month scenario? So this was a real case study. A woman approached me from a large pharmaceutical company a couple of years ago when I was doing one-to-one coaching. And she said, hey, I have this high stakes talk. 100 people are going to be there. All the decision makers of the company. I need to shine, and I want to invest in working with you so that that can happen. So this is my favorite kind of person. Okay, she's awake to the fact that she needs support. She's ready to do the work. She's rolled up her shirt sleeves. Let's get to work. So we did. And the first thing that we did was we took out our calendars and we marked down, okay, let's divide the time now appropriately so that you know what your milestones are in our work together. And this is where my famous 40-60 ratio comes in. All right. You've heard this in other podcast episodes, I'm sure. It's 40% of the time I suggest should be about you working on the content creation. So in that bucket. And the remainder of the time, the 60%, should be you working on the delivery rehearsal for the performance. Yeah. And so there we were with the calendar. So what does that look like? Well, in 90 days, 3 months, about 36 of those days are working on the content. And the remainder of those days in the calendar are working on the delivery of that content. And if you are asking yourself why, then you have to go back to other episodes of Leadership Speaking Radio because I have got this nailed down in other episodes. I don't remember which ones. There's so many now, but go through the library catalog of different episodes and I will talk about that more at length then. I'm not spending time talking about that now. This ratio, just as a short line about why this is because it's more important to work on how you say what you're going to say than what you are going to say. With the caveat, very important, that you are not doing a lesser job creating the content. You're not cutting corners. You're not making it a worse, piece of work by spending less time on it. You're just budgeting your time differently so that you have enough time in that 40% of your time to create the content and then even more time to work on how you say it. Okay? Enough said. So there we were. We created this calendar outline for ourselves and we put the milestones in there and I gave her a targeted date of when I needed the first draft of her content and we worked on that first draft, and then a targeted date for the final draft. And once that was in the calendar, then we had some calendar milestones for the delivery rehearsal elements, which were, okay, so when are we going to do the vocal layer? When are we doing the body layer? When are we doing a dress rehearsal? So these phases are the behind the scenes magic of a performance art. This is the behind the scenes of what it takes to create a performance, a speaking performance in this case, that has that heightened quality, that has the work done and the sweat equity put in for it to be the best that it can be. And yes, we went ahead and did exactly as planned. And we went through every milestone. She hit it. She, in fact, nailed every milestone. And there we were, dress rehearsal. She was ready to go. It was going to be a couple of days after the dress rehearsal that she flew to the location and delivered this high-stakes talk. And let me tell you, I did a happy dance when I got her email about how wonderful it went and how her colleagues and the leaders of her company came up to her afterwards. And some of them said things like, I didn't really understand what you worked on before, but now I do. Thank you for this amazing presentation and the clarity of how you presented it. And of course, other people gave her other compliments, like how much they enjoyed her professional delivery, etc., etc., etc. The point is, it was a success. And it took this behind the scenes work in order to get there. So this, in my book, is the best example and the best case study of what it looks like to prepare well for a good talk. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, yes, but which you probably are. Yes, but I am so busy, and often I don't even know that I'm going to be delivering anything until like a week or a couple of days just beforehand. What do I do then? And yeah, this is the reality for most people. And I recognize this. So obviously there is an answer. The answer is you won't have as much time to embody the work, so you probably have to use notes. You probably have to have written notes, or you have your phone or an iPad with the notes on it. And that's step number one, because you're not going to have time to digest and learn the content by heart. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, it's still the 40-60. So if you have a couple of days, let's say you have 3 days, you spend a day working on the content, get it right, work hard, finish the slides, do everything you need, and then you spend 2 days rehearsing it 3 times or 4 times a day. And that's the best you can do for that situation. If you have a day to go, I don't really like this scenario, but I know it's a reality for some people. If you have a day to go, you're working on the content and the delivery at the same time. So you are figuring out a way to create the content by speaking it out. I like to talk about the walking and talking method. This is you kind of rehearsing. It's bullet points. It has to be for this kind of thing. Rehearsing bullet points, saying them over and over again. Don't do more than 5 or 6 rehearsals of this content. Don't do 20. Don't do 30. There's a story in my book about a young man who I worked with who didn't know this rule because we hadn't worked together long enough. But he rehearsed 20 times on one day, 20 times the next day, and 20 times, I think it was 3 days in a row. I don't remember now. I have to read the story again. But he rehearsed too much just before his high stakes talk. So when the high stakes talk happened on that Monday, he didn't have a voice. Anyway, I say more in my new book, Nowhere Left to Hide, Leadership Communication Skills that every leader of the digital age must know. That's where all the details of this story are. So yeah, don't do that. Don't over-rehearse. You will hurt your voice. But rehearse out loud, get the bullet points, and learn your content like a storyteller. So a storyteller has scaffolding. And we can think of bullet points as the same thing as scaffolding. Yeah? So it's, what happens? It's a sequence. It's here's the first bullet point. It's this section, and then talk about it. Then it's this section and talk about it, and so on. So it's about 3 or 4 points, and you are talking and making the words up underneath each point. This is what super busy people need to do. And this is what storytellers do, and memorizing the order, the sequence of what they will be talking about. And that's the method that you'd need to use for something where you have only one day. But the important part is it's not doing what most people in this situation would do, which is they just create the slides and then they'd read from the slides. Don't visit this podcast anymore if that's you. Or if that is you and you want to elevate, you're still in the right place. Yeah? I don't want to hear about that method because that method is broken and it alienates you from your audiences and it is a completely unremarkable performance. What I'm talking about here and the work that I do is craft-based, as you know, and there is art involved. There's skill involved. There's a method to the madness, as it were. So yeah. That's all I want to say about the one day. Really, you need to be getting much better at professionalizing how you prepare. And that's really my intention with talking about preparation in this episode of Leadership Speaking Radio. You need to be thinking differently about how you can get ready when you can, right? So yes, I get it. There are times when you can't. But let's find those opportunities where you can. And let's heighten how you prepare. Let's think differently about that whole process. Let's budget time for the effort it will take you to do the work in the content creation bucket and in the delivery performance bucket. Does this make sense? I hope so. And this is really the main message that I want to share with you in this episode of Leadership Speaking Radio. That in the best case scenario, you have a choice about how you want to prepare, how you want to spend your time, how you can divide that time, and how you can make that time count towards you getting ready to perform your talk in the best possible way. So that's really what I want to say here and now. I think you get the message, and I hope that you can apply this technique as soon as possible. As with everything that I teach you, I hope that you can continue to say yes to every speaking opportunity that you are offered, so that you can practice the skills that I am teaching you here in the craft learning about leadership communication. And this idea about preparing in this way is a really important skill to get good at. Because when you do, it's one of these gifts that just keeps on giving. When you've done this and you've put in the sweat equity and the work to really do this behind the scenes process, you will see how well you do. And others will see how well you do, and you will be complimented for it, and you will feel good and juicy all over from head to toe. And here's the good news. You'll want to do it again. And ideally, in the best case scenario, this method of preparing becomes your go-to method. And this is how you take on work. You have professionalized how you prepare. This is you in the best case scenario. This is you after saying yes to as many speaking opportunities as you can and nailing the brief for how to prepare. I wish you good luck in all aspects of how you do this. And I really hope that you will feel that extraordinary feeling after you've done this kind of work of the reward of what that work gave you. Okay, so I'm going to close out this episode for now. I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed delivering it. Subscribe now to Leadership Speaking Radio to be sure not to miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the website, theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to learn more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time you communicate with your peers, teams, and customers. And hey, why not recommend this podcast to a friend or a colleague if you feel like they can get some value for it? And even better, if you are enjoying what you are learning in these podcast episodes, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating so that other people can find this podcast and benefit from it as well. All right, folks, so that's it. I will see you and talk to you next time. Take care and enjoy leadership communication, because communication is supposed to feel good.